I now call the Des Moines City Council regular meeting for July 13th to order. And with that, I'll have Deputy Mayor Buxton lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you turn your, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that all 7 council members are present. Before we begin, Councilmember Harris, could I ask you to remove your cap in accordance with council rules?
No, sir. I've already submitted a form for a medical accommodation on just that thing. It is in process now with the HR director. So I will ask her for forbearance until that is, she's worked through the paperwork.
All right, thank you for that answer. All right. Before we begin to public comments, I had a couple things as presiding officer I wanted to bring to our attention and discuss. I want to talk about the 4th of July. First of all, I think the city staff did a wonderful job on the event, and I thank you sincerely, as does the rest of the council. Particularly the Assistant Harbor Master, Katie Bavagny, came through really strongly, and she deserves a lot of great credit for it. And I know that many people were thrilled with how she took the leadership and role in that particular place due to a vacancy. I know that with drones, we set ourselves apart. I can tell you that at the Federal Way Council meeting, a few of their members saw the event, and actually they're in discussions about switching to them in the future, as many other cities are too. There was some confusion about where the money came from, and it came from lodging taxes. And lodging taxes are designed to promote the city, bring business to our restaurants and to our hotels and so forth. And it isn't out of the general fund or what would be equated to our city taxpayer dollars. The funds are, like I said, they're special use, and that's what they were used for, specific to that. Now, there will be debates about drones versus fireworks, the visibility in parts of the town, whether we can move them and so forth, that people can see them from Redondo or North Hill, and those are something that we'll discuss at a later date. And of course, the cost versus the cost of fireworks, right? Unfortunately, in an event like that was very family friendly and safe. As long as we have reservations around here and so forth like that, we've always got that neighbor that's going to light illegal fireworks and do certain problematic things. I asked our acting chief, Mark Huey, to come up and talk a little bit about the policing portion of that and some of the things they were trying to do and some of the difficulties in that regard. So with that, sir, I give you the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. Yes, this year actually, the 4th of July went off really smoothly from our perspective. We had a few more calls for fireworks this year than last, however, significantly less than 2021. We did have our full staff working, as well as our detectives and other staff working down at the marina. So we had a full team. We had 1 car designated for fireworks enforcement. The challenge always is fireworks, it's an infraction. So I know some people think, well, just look for the lights and listen for the boom and go there and write a ticket to whoever answers the door. And that's not the way it works. You have to actually witness on an infraction. You have to witness the violation. And so, of course, people have their goofy neighbor that likes to light off fireworks and annoy them, but they also have somebody that's watching, and as soon as the patrol car gets in the area, you know, everybody scatters, or you're not witnessing the actual thing. So we do contact residents, we do knock at the door, ask people, tell them that we've got a call. Sometimes it fixes it, sometimes it doesn't. But again, no significant issues citywide related to the 4th, and we count into the 5th. So, and I've got numbers as well, but I had the chance to watch the drone show, and thank you. It was the first one that I'd seen, and I was impressed. So got to talk to the person that ran it, and very impressed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So what's a little concerning, though, is a lot of these issues are what took away about what the event's supposed to be about. I wanted you to know that we provided activities for the residents and families and visitors throughout the day. They had bands, DJs, and food. The issues of alcohol, problematic types of actions and stuff was at a minimum. We made a stance on being less impactful to the environment, particularly in the sea life, and SR3 was particularly thankful because they are caring for baby seals. We have several residents that have pets, particularly some of our elderly. It's their only friend, and they didn't have to deal with the issues of the pets being psychotic or buried in the covers. And as a veteran, I have a few friends that suffer from PTSD, and that's something that if you understood the seriousness of it, that those veterans in this community are probably thankful for that, especially the ones that suffer from that. We were a point of difference from the other cities, but the biggest thing is we celebrate the 4th of July to celebrate America, and America's about, you know, a melting pot and diversity and community, and that everybody has opportunity here. It's why so many other countries, a lot of people come here to enjoy it. And what we had was a family-friendly event full of diversities, different religions, and they weren't black, brown, red, or white. They were red, white, and blue all in one night, and it was a wonderful occurrence. And the families that were there down on the parking lot and in the park, the call out was from many people that I spoke to was that they felt it was tamer and much more family friendly and safer. So obviously, as we move forward, will it be for discussion? But we wanted to do this to make sure I'd seen the noise out there, that this was called out, that we do make the efforts to try to curb the illegal fireworks, but we wanted to do something and make a stand, and it looks like a lot of other cities are looking at our leadership in this regard as we move forward. All right, moving on to the next thing, I wanted to talk about a water district update. So we had 3 things we agreed on, and there's a couple people that'll come up and speak on that. So first of all, we talked about having a meeting with the water district and other entities to see how we could better communicate to the public and so forth in these types of emergency situations. So the second one was we wanted to find ways to help our businesses immediately. And the third, of course, was if needed, we would hire an independent consultant to assess the infrastructure. So in the first one, I'd like to turn the floor over to Councilmember Pennington, who's going to give us an update on the meeting piece of it.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. I met with the Water District Manager, Eric Clark, a few days ago, and we had a really great discussion on the Water District and the event and maybe some of the future of the Water District. And so they're very, very open and are looking forward to coming and having a discussion about what happened and all the logistics around that, you know, post-incident analysis is what we call it. So we've got a couple of dates. We're coordinating the dates with the different agencies that were involved, and that being the Water District itself, the city, King County Health Department, and the Public Health Department, or Washington State Public Health. And so we're coordinating those dates. So we should have a date here. Hopefully by tomorrow we'll have that all nailed down. But so that's where we're at. Everybody's willing to come to the table and have the discussion and see what we can learn and what best practices we can take out of this, and hopefully this never happens again. But you know, we'll let the discussion unfold, and we'll come to some conclusions and some recommendations probably for both agencies. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you, Councilmember Pennington. And then I've asked Rochelle, it used to be Sims, it's now Caton, right? I pronounced that correctly? And you wanted, I was hoping you could give the council an update on the business grants that were executed just in the past week.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. As the mayor shared, I can provide an early update and overview of this program, which just began. Once this program concludes at the end of July, then if the council wishes, we can come back and provide another update. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay. So this is our application that is on the city's website. If we scroll down a little bit, we can talk about what the criteria is. Next page, please. Okay, so in order for the business to be eligible, it must have a permanent storefront or business in the location, and there's a map below that you'll be able to see, but it's Water District 54. The business must have suffered negative economic impact due to this specific incident, have an active current Des Moines business license, be current on the city business taxes, and then also be willing to provide a W-9 form for the business. And then this is an important note, these funds are not intended to supplement insurance funds and shall be applied to losses not covered by insurance. So our process is very, very simple. Step one, fully complete the online application. Provide a brief summary as to how your business was impacted. And really, the responses that we received from this is, I'll just read you a couple. Many of our businesses shared that they had to throw away all of their food. Many of the restaurants had catering orders that they had to throw out and cancel completely. Some of our salons, of course, they were unable to operate as they needed running water for their business. So all of them shared loss of revenue. And the more important part in how this program is intended was to support the employees of the business. Okay. And then if we go down a little bit further, the applications will be reviewed upon receipt. And then again, we reminded the applicants that the intention of this grant program is to ensure maximum support to the employees. And then I've actually not been reached out to by very many businesses. I'm hoping that's because our application process was so simple. Then moving on to the next page, please. That's the map that we created, and then there's just 5 or 6 questions for applicants. So to get to the numbers, we have received, let's see here, I have this number, 23 applicants thus far. 14 of those have been coffee shops or restaurants. 7 have been hair or nail salons, and then 2 food trucks. And so those applications are all being processed currently.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I will say that in addition, I've spoke to several businesses. They were very appreciative that the city manager and team acted so fastly. They're still awaiting contact with the insurance companies and so forth, but at least in a lot of these, when they're week to week on cash flow and stuff, the city was able to help in this regard. And as I said, the third item we'll assess after Vic has his meeting and so forth. With that, I'm going to move on to public comment. Is there any correspondence first before I ask that?
No other correspondence other than
right.
the ones already received.
I would just like to remind those participants that any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or become boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council will be removed from the meeting, and you will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will start with Miss Victoria Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. I submitted my comments on Tuesday, and I appreciate that they've already, in large part, been addressed, particularly my final comments which I appreciate your comments about how difficult it is to catch the offenders of the fireworks. But I do want to thank the council and the administration for taking the bold and controversial step to put on a drone show on the 4th instead of traditional fireworks for our residents and visitors. I was proud that at least my city wasn't polluting the air and the waters of the Sound. I really enjoyed watching the drones coalesce into iconic images, and the crowd watching from Overlook 1 below me did as well. I am guessing that the city will not return to traditional fireworks next year, so although the drone show was much more expensive, and now I know what paid for it, thank you, I am hoping that as the technology improves, the price will go down and quality of the show will go up. The feedback I got when I polled neighbors and others was mixed. Those in the beach park and close to the marina got a great show, but North Hill and South End residents either couldn't see much because the drones weren't high enough or couldn't tell what the images were because they were oriented toward the marina. So here are some suggestions for next year. I recognize technological limitations might limit how high the drones can fly, but if the whole city is going to be able to view the show, they need to get much higher. More drones next year will improve the quality of the images, and they should rotate so they face the marina, then north, then south. At the Mayor's Coffee on July 5th, we talked about how to develop business sponsorships to help offset the cost of the show, without making it a crass 15-minute infomercial that has nothing to do with Independence Day. I think this has possibilities, perhaps at the end of the show with a, quote, thanks to these local co-sponsors, unquote, and their names in drone lights. Another suggestion is to bring back passing the can at beach park concerts to encourage residents to help fund the show. I wonder why that stopped. It was a good way to encourage community support, and if the show's going to get better every year, it'll likely get pricier as well down the line. Finally, while the drone show was better for vets and pets' ears, the neighborhood fireworks in my marina area were worse this year than they've ever been. If they are illegal in Des Moines, the police have to attempt to apprehend at least some of the offenders. And again, this was before your comments. Most officers were evidently deployed to provide security at the marina, but the new chief should try to move some of them around next year. It'll be easy to find the culprits, just follow the noise and the explosions. And evidently, that isn't as easy as it sounds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Andrews. Moving on to Ms. Kim Van Warmer.
Sorry for our appearance. We just came off playing pickleball at the lovely Des Moines Field House, but this is my husband, Aaron. I'm Kim. Good evening. We're new to this area. We live up on 4th Avenue on North Hill, and we're just here to express the concerns we have with the traffic that flies up and down that street. I am concerned for the children that live across the street from us. I'm concerned for the elderly gentleman who walks his dog. We walk a lot, and it's crazy to try and feel safe on that hill. And it just, I have partnered or requested with the Des Moines City. They came out and did a traffic survey, but again, the things were put at the bottom of the hill. So that's basically just monitoring cars. It's not gonna catch the people who are doing 60, 70 miles up and down that hill. I filed a police report yesterday because there's one gentleman who comes every day at 2:15 on his Harley Davidson and just flies up the hill. And I'm just wondering what we can do before a tragedy happens and a child, especially with the summertime, there are kids out there trying to ride their bikes and play. And it's just, I don't have kids at home anymore and I don't have pets, but I'm thankful that I don't, living here. And it's just, it's like a highway and I don't know what can be done. And that's why I'm just here to, express our concerns as new to the neighborhood. Police reports, I mean, if you have to fill out a form, please come do it on 4th Avenue South if you're, or come every day and you'll make lots of money for the city. So thank you, just here to express our concerns. And I did want to say that one of my neighbors, Dave Elliott, said that he did send an email this morning to the council regarding this issue as well. So I'm interested to see what the results of the traffic study is and what we can do about it, if anything.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I stopped by the other day.
Yeah,
just being your neighbor. But I just wanted to praise you of some of the things. Yes, Mr. Burgess is working on the traffic study and some of the things we could do. With the incline and some of the things, there's a little bit of issue. But I also talked to the acting police chief, Mark Cooey, and he's addressing some traffic concerns in that regard as well. So there is some efforts there.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
All right? Okay. All right. We'll move on to the city manager's report, and our city attorney, Mr. George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, so I'm just going to start off with the speed camera update because I've given one at the last couple of council meetings, and we'll keep you informed of our progress. The signs have been designed and they've been ordered. Like I told you at the last meeting, we are the first ones to do this, so we actually design them ourselves. Our engineering staff is sort of acting as pioneers in this case. So those have been designed. They'll likely be put up before the cameras are installed, which will just provide some additional layers of notice for those in the neighborhood as well as those that use Redondo for commuting. We're currently working with PSC. We've actually had some good conversations and we're moving forward with that. So there shouldn't be a concern about that holding us up in the future. There's just logistical stuff, but they are talking to us and they're being very helpful. We also conducted a survey. We had a consultant conduct a survey to determine the perimeters of the park zones so that we'll have those marked with a monument. And that'll also help us when we're in court having a survey showing where the 300 feet is so that we can confirm that to the judge. So that's where we are right now. We'll be working on installation, and at our next meeting, I can give the council another update. Next on our agenda, we have a representative from South King Fire and Rescue. So I could call it Captain Brad Cheney, who's the Public Information Officer.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, so like they said, my name is Brad Cheney. I am a captain and public information officer, community affairs officer, public educator, all of those things for South King Fire, your local fire district. My whole job is to help bridge the gap between our community members and the fire district. And so obviously COVID threw a wrench into a lot of our presentations and the things that we used to be able to do on a regular basis. So my hope today is to kind of start that partnership back up again. I want to give you a very brief high-level view of your fire district because most people don't really understand all of the things that we're capable of. And then we'll continue this partnership moving forward and do more presentations to kind of help fill in some of the other gaps there. So be prepared because I only got 15 minutes, so I'm gonna zing right through it. So South King Fire, we cover 41 square miles. We protect 160,000 community members. And in 2022, we ran 24,429 calls. When you think about our service area, think from everything from Tacoma up to Normandy Park, and then from the Puget Sound all the way over to Military Road before you start to drop down into the valley. It's a little bit more narrow up here in the north end with Des Moines and North Hill, but it gets a little bit wider as you go down south into Federal Way. Your fire district is comprised of 157 firefighters. We have 36 day staff personnel who support them. That's everything from HR and finance to IT. We have 7 responding fire stations. That means that there are firefighters who are working 365 days a year, 24/7. They're there, they eat, they sleep, they do all of those things for 24 hours at a time, but they are ready to respond to your emergency whenever you dial 911. We have a logistics and a fleet center. So logistics is everything that helps make us run, everything from toilet paper and paper towels and hand soap, all the way to medical supplies and firefighter bunker gear, SCBAs, all of those things. Our fleet division is basically our mechanics. That's a whole new, we have a new facility that we got just a couple of years ago that actually allows us to do all of our own mechanical work in-house. So we no longer have to outsource everything, and we're not relying on somebody else's schedule to get our rigs back in service to respond to you. Okay, so that's a big increase for us. And we also have a training station. That was the very first picture that you saw, the big ladder truck spraying water. The training station now is actually a regional asset. So when you think about King County Fire Departments, everything south of Seattle and into north of Tacoma, we're all a big zone, and it's called Zone 3. We actually brought the best of the best and the brightest of the brightest and put them all together in one big training facility to create and elevate the training for the firefighters, because there's some things we can do at our station that we can't do at a different station, and there's other things we can do at that station that we can't do at ours. So now we rotate through stations, so you'll see different fire agencies in your local area doing elevated training to take us to that next level, okay? Our daily resourcing, I talked a little bit about 24-hour shifts. That's the typical schedule for firefighters. Right now, our number is 29 firefighters every day. And there's a variation of what that can bring to us, but in general, you would have a battalion chief who's on duty for the entire shift. They're in charge of all 7 stations. They run the major incidents. They're in charge of training to make sure all that's getting done, documentation is done. And then a lot of what we do is actually medical work as well. Most people don't know that, but we are EMTs. We're first responders and EMTs, and then we do the firefighting and a whole bunch more. So we can have 4 aid cars, and those aid cars act as buffers to make sure that the fire engine is still in service, because when there's a fire, that's more catastrophic than just a medical event. Medical events are still serious, but we need to have those fire engines in place to respond quickly to the catastrophic events, right? And then we also have a ladder truck. That's the one that's got the 105-foot aerial ladder up on top. You saw it spraying water. That thing is just absolutely amazing. We don't have a lot of high rises here, but we have a lot of mid rises, and so that ladder allows us to have access to those upper floors during an emergency. We talk about our calls. We ran 24,429 calls. That is a really, really, really high number. I said EMS is a large part of what we do. That stands for Emergency Medical Services, okay? 77% is medical. And what that ranges from is everything from vehicle accidents with people having injuries to slip and falls. We have a lot of elderly people in our local area, so sometimes they fall and they hurt themselves. We have to go pick them up, treat them, transport them, do all those things. COVID-19 was a huge thing for us. We ran, I think it was 1,400 calls in 1 year that were just specific for COVID-19. Cardiac arrest, people suffer cardiac arrest. This is actually one of the best places to have a heart attack because we are really, really good at it. We train all the time and we practice. And another thing is like scenes of violence. Law enforcement is a huge community partner for us. When there's scenes of violence, they go in and they secure the scene so that we can safely enter. And then when we enter, we rapidly treat the patients and extricate them out to safety and then get them off to the hospital. We do have bulletproof vests. We wear those as well for those scenes of violence. False alarm and good intent, that's kind of a weird category, but how many people have actually burnt popcorn before in the microwave? I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I've done it. I've burnt toast, you know, it just happens. But it sets off the alarm, especially when you got Judson Park and things like that. You have a lot of different people living in one space. If somebody makes a mistake and it sets off the alarm, guess who gets dispatched? We do, and we dispatch all the resources that are needed for that potential emergency, but then we get there and we find out, hey, it was just burnt popcorn. We can sky back down and we can go back to the station, respond to the next one. Canceled en route or no incident found. Sometimes with Pack Highway, there's a lot of fender benders, people meaning nothing but good intent. They'll go drive by it and they'll, oh, an accident happened. I think somebody needs to call 911. They call 911. We get there and they say, hey, yeah, it was just a fender bender. We're not injured. So then we cancel and then we go back. Okay? We're always trying to take some efforts to educate our community members on when to call 911, but that's one of those tricky areas. When you hear about your fire district, you think fire. That's the first thing you think about. 3% of our calls were fire. That seems really minimal. But when you run 24,000 calls a year, that averaged out to 136 building fires in 2022. Our largest one was in Federal Way. It was off of 21st Avenue Southwest and 356. It was a 3-alarm fire. I can't get into all the details about all the dispatched units, but just know lots of resources were deployed to that. 36 units were destroyed. It started in the second floor, one of those electrical bars that was overloaded, covered with dust, covered with clothes, caught fire under the bed, caught the bed on fire, blew out the second-story window, continued to grow, busted open the third-story window, continued to get bigger, hit the eaves. We all know that the eaves lead to the attic space. So once it got into the attic space, in about less than 6 minutes, it burned the roof off. So the roof started to collapse. So thankfully we were able to get most people out beforehand, but one person actually was asleep and was on the back side of the building that we hadn't gotten to yet, and she woke up, came outside, and we were able to actually rescue her with ladders because we already had them in place. We were able to save this all the way to just that one building. When you think about apartment complexes, they're stacked right next to each other, right? But through our defensive tactics, we were able to keep it down to just one building, and we did save lots of pets. There's a picture of one in particular. Here's the video of us rescuing the lady off of the 3rd floor. You can see the fire just right above that balcony there. That's where the roof was, and it had already started to collapse just inside the center hallway. And then on the left-hand side, you see the puppy dog. We're washing it off because it had soot all over it. And then we have some puppy mask as well to give it some fresh oxygen. We know that your furry animals are part of your family, right? We know that's important too, so we do take that seriously and make our best effort to help save them. When you think about fire departments, now we've talked about EMS, medical stuff, and we've talked about firefighting and a little bit of vehicle, I talked about vehicle extrication or vehicle accidents that happen. But there's also other levels of highly trained individuals that go above and beyond just the firefighter thing. And I want to talk about some of those teams. This one here is our technical rescue team. They're highly trained in confined space. Structural collapse, imagine if an earthquake happens, they're trained, prepared, and able to handle a lot of those things. Rope rescue, those are the guys that are hanging off of the side of the building in a rope harness and able to pluck you out of a window if we need be. There's lots of cliffs over here. We've had people accidentally stumble down the cliff. We can set up a rigging system and go down, treat them, put them in a basket, and hoist them back up and keep them safe. Trench rescue, that's what you see here. I wish I could get into the details of this, but unfortunately, they were doing construction. They pulled out their safety equipment. Person goes back down, tries to make a connection on the gas line, and the walls collapsed in on them and unfortunately killed them. It's a family-run business. The family is there. We have an obligation to do our best to get that patient out. So we use all these struts that you see in the middle there. They're hydraulic struts that push big planks of wood up against the wall, and we use those to try and stabilize the wall so that we can go down 19 feet to dig out the patient, okay? And then there are also swiftwater rescue swimmers. We do respond again as a regional team, as a zone asset and regional asset. So we respond down to the Green River a lot to help rescue people who get trapped down there. The Marine team, hopefully everybody's familiar with this one because that's here in Des Moines, so hopefully you're proud of that. And Chief Pennington, retired Chief Pennington was a huge player in this, but our Marine team has a new fireboat, and it's called Zenith. A little throwback to old Des Moines and old Zenith, of course. And what we did was we went to the state and we said, hey, we protect the precious resources in the Puget Sound and your shipping lanes and all of this. We need some help. And they gifted us $750,000 to help purchase a new vessel. That vessel already went and fought the big ship fire down in Tacoma. Absolutely toxic. Everybody hated it. But what we did was we spent time cooling the outside of the ship to make sure that the welds of the vessel don't crack, because if they do during the fire, then it fills with water and then it sinks and then it pollutes the Puget Sound with all the diesel fuel that it just filled with. These individuals are highly trained in navigation, search and rescue, vessel assist, and fire suppression and close quarter maneuvering. We've had a marina fire before in the past, not with this vessel, but they practice those maneuvers to make sure that they can pluck people out of the water as quickly as possible, okay? Another one is the hazardous materials team. I was a hazardous materials technician, absolutely loved it. We're the individuals that will put on a full encapsulating suit with our breathing apparatus, and we will gladly walk through a toxic cloud of smoke to go shut off a valve or stop a leak. That's what we're into. It's weird, I get it, but we like it. Biological, chemical radiation, we have the ability to respond to some of those incidents and to be able to help stabilize them to get our community safe. We're really good at air monitoring. If there's a leak or something, a big accident on I-5 and something starts to off-gas, we can do air monitoring to see where that's going and whether or not we need to evacuate. Patching, plugging, imagine another vehicle accident or something rips open and it's leaking. We have the ability to go stop that. Technical and mass decon, that's basically decontamination. Technical is more focused on just one person getting whatever powder or substance off of me. Mass is we've all been exposed to something. We're gonna set up a big, huge tent. We're gonna run you through some showers, get you fresh clothes, take your vital signs, blood pressure, heart rate, all those things, and monitor you. We have the ability to do that. Advanced decon of virus and bacteria. This was something that happened during COVID. We set up for our law enforcement partners a decontamination system at our hazardous materials station. We had a decontamination trailer, and then when the law enforcement would come in contact with somebody with COVID-19, they would take them to where they needed to take them. They would come to our station, they would take a fresh shower, get fresh clothes. Then we would actually put on our suits and go out and decontaminate their emergency vehicle so that they could get quickly back in service and go protect the community. It was a really amazing partnership that we had. And it wasn't just Des Moines PD, it was also Federal PD, King County Sheriff, anybody who needed it, people came and used it. And then we're getting a new grant for a drone program with infrared capabilities. Super exciting. I'm really excited about it, but when chemicals react together, or when an accident happens, we also respond down into the train stations. When an accident happens, sometimes chemicals don't react nicely, and they can be either endothermic or exothermic, which means they get really cold or they produce a lot of heat and they get really violent. This will allow us to observe that quickly and from a safe distance, having that drone with infrared. Okay? Last program that I want to talk about is our Rescue Swimmer program. It is super highly effective. We're in the rescue business, so our job is to get to you as quickly as possible, no matter what. The Rescue Swimmer program is all about getting in that body of water as fast as possible for anybody experiencing a water emergency. They're really good at rapid entry. They're good at search and rescue. They do free diving. They don't have a tank. They practice free diving with just their flippers and their snorkel, as you can see. They have dive patterns that they practice all the time. We did just get a brand new inflatable rescue boat. The tanks that we wear, it's called an SCBA, that tank we wear, we can use that to fill up the rescue boat, and then we can go out further into the water and use that as a platform to do our searches off of. Okay, I want to share one little story with you about this program, and then I'll conclude my presentation. We live in a beautiful area, okay? Absolutely love it. But sometimes we see the worst of the worst, right? Not too long ago, we had a 19-year-old girl who unfortunately reached the end of her rope. She thought she didn't have any other resources, and she decided to take her own life. She drove her vehicle down the boat ramp at Redondo and went into the Puget Sound. The first rig that showed up, we had 38 rescue swimmers. The first rig that showed up had a rescue swimmer on it. They put on their suit while they were en route, and as soon as they got there, they started swimming out into the water. The vehicle is about 40 yards out from the shore because it starts to sink and it starts to go underwater. Swims all the way out, finds the headlights about 10 feet under the surface, swims down to identify, yes, they have one patient in the driver's seat. During that whole time while he was swimming, another rig showed up with a second rescue swimmer. As the first guy came back up to catch his breath, the second rescue swimmer was there. They did a quick face-to-face and said, I've got one in the driver's side. They swim back down, they break the window, they cut the seatbelt, and they pull her back up. And they swam her back to shore. She's met by more firefighters, law enforcement who was helping protect the scene, and King County Medic 1. We did CPR. And then we transported her to Harborview with a couple firefighters, where ultimately she was resuscitated. It took a while, but about a year later, she was able to come back and say thank you. and we gave those individuals the Medal of Valor. It's one of the highest awards that you can get. So that program there and that particular call made a huge impact on that lady and what she's going to do in her future, because she has a whole bright future ahead of her now because of what we do. So, thank you. That concludes the presentation, but I don't know how much time I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions if somebody has one.
Councilmember Harris?
You were born for this job. Yeah, you guys used to very generously provide carbon monoxide detectors. I hate to blindside you, but is that coming back or anytime soon? I'm sorry, but it's popular.
No, you're absolutely right. So we do have a smoke alarm, carbon monoxide alarm program that we used to be able to run. We would actually get donations from World Vision in Federal Way. They would get their donations from Costco. For whatever reason, I don't understand all of it, but the supply chain issues that happened during COVID, ever since COVID, I have not been able to get any more smoke alarms or CO alarms. So unfortunately, we're down to like our last 10 or 12. It's actually pretty sad. I'm working really hard to try and find a new partnership so that we can get those, because we have canvassed communities that maybe are on the lower economic scale, and one in particular, we put in 172 smoke alarms because they just didn't have them. So 172 different homes in one day. There's a tremendous amount of value in that program, and I promise as soon as I can get it back up and running, I will send you an email and say, hey, we're going. But yeah, we hope to get back there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nutty?
Thank you, Brad. That was a great presentation, and through our contact throughout the years, man, I really appreciate you and the South King. My question is with more tower cranes going up, have you been contacted by any contractors allowing you to use their tower cranes for high-level rescue? And is South King open to that? And do you have a team? I know you have the rope rescue, but it's a little different with that high, 200, 300 feet in the air kind of rescue.
Yeah, man, I wish I actually had the photo ready to go. Just the other day, we actually did training on one of the huge cranes. It was actually down in Federal Way, but we were able to get a photo of one of our rescue technicians hanging off of the crane with Mount Rainier just right in the background. I mean, it's literally, he's dangling in midair and Mount Rainier is there. It's 100-some feet up for sure, but we do try to take advantage of those opportunities. And so I'm happy to pass on any contact information that you might have that we could put our resources to and say, hey, how do we partner? Because we want to get more training that would meet those needs. But yes, we absolutely do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilmember Pennington?
I don't know that I have any questions, but thank you, Brad, Captain Cheney. You did an outstanding job, and one of my prouder promotions, by the way. And
thank you again.
And a couple of things that I want to reiterate about some things you said. With our technical rescue team, they're a part of the Washington Task Force teams that go all over the country to respond. And we've got some of our folks are the major players in the teams. They went up to OSO, had a huge impact on what went on up there, and actually made it back to headquarters in DC and changed some things the way FEMA does things, and that doesn't happen very often. The hazmat folks, we've got some incredible folks there. During COVID, we put together a task force, and we had folks from the technical rescue team with the FEMA experience, the hazmat team with all their backgrounds and degrees and bugs and chemicals and all sorts of things, and folks that do analytics, and so that your firefighters are more than just women and men that hang out on the fire engine and aid cars and drive around the city and do that stuff. They're a really bright, intelligent, forward-thinking group of folks. And I couldn't be more prouder of them. I couldn't be more proud to be involved with that organization. But they're there, they have a passion for service, and they don't expect any recognition, and they just, that's just what we do. And so I'll speak up for them. And I am proud of every one of them, and they do a tremendous job, and they do it for you, and they do it for the love of the calling. So anyway, thank you, Brad, very much for coming tonight and sharing. Unfortunately, we don't get to share as much as you know we'd like to, but it's there. And if you ever have questions, I know you can call him and he'll answer you. Send him an email. So and I think you'll on August 5th at Touch a Truck, you'll have he's one of the firefighters that has their very own fire truck, but he'll bring his public education truck and be over at Steve Underwood Park on the August 5th. And so bring your children, grandchildren, or yourself, and you know look at the fire engine, look at all the other big vehicles that'll be there. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes, thank you. The acting police chief gave a report earlier on the most recent 4th of July incidents and stuff. Can you speak to what the fire department's experience was?
Yeah, it's funny because as you were talking, I had some personal thoughts as well, and then I you know, have some fire department thoughts about that too. So this year we actually saw an increase in some of the firework related calls that we went to. They're mostly brush fires that are caused by fireworks. This year's obviously been a lot drier. We had a wonderful, you know, couple months with great temperatures, but unfortunately that increases our fuel load capacity and it lowers the moisture content in that fuel load. So things are, they're able to catch fire a lot more quickly. I think altogether over a week period, we responded to 27 different fireworks related fires, whether it's a vehicle or a brush fire. There were some variations, even small house fires, something landed on a roof. So we're doing as much as we can. There's certainly the enforcement side that is a huge challenge. King County itself is working really hard to educate the public on how dangerous fireworks are. I personally, from the fire department side, just really appreciate the approach that the city of Des Moines took, because that is a game changer as far as trying to protect not just us in our community, but also the Puget Sound. I mean, that is a huge, valuable resource to us, and we can't keep polluting it and doing things to it that are going to cause harm to it. So for you to take that stance and to realize on a bigger scale the impact that it could have to continue down this road that we've been on, I'm just really impressed with it. I saw the pictures. David Rosen, I think, is the gentleman who took some photography photos there. Absolutely amazing. I'm just disappointed I wasn't here to see it. That was really incredible. And you're right, I too have heard from other people, wow, we should look into that for next year. So you did lead the way on that, and I understand change is hard, but bravo for being brave enough to step up and make that change.
I think we're going to have you more often. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been well said, so I won't beat the point, but we really appreciate what you guys do for our community.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thanks a lot, Captain Cheney. Next on our agenda is the South King County Community Impact Fund update. So I'd like to ask Elise Aiden from the Port of Seattle to come up and speak to that.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Elise Aiden. I'm with the Port of Seattle on our external relations team. And so today I'll be presenting on our environmental grants program. This is the third round that we just completed. So I'll share a couple of projects that are happening here in Des Moines and some of our updates for this last year. So just to give you a little background on the fund, we launched in 2019 through the Port Commission to develop equity-based partnerships with near airport communities. It is a $10 million fund for over 5 years. We're coming up this fall to get renewal for next year. So we've pretty much used most of it. We're at about $9 million of the $10 million. The 3 programs that we support are our WIMBY Small Business Support Team. That's through our Economic Development Department, and they work with 3 groups, including Highline College, to support small businesses in the area and do training programs. We also have an Economic Recovery Grants Program. That RFP is currently out right now, and that really focuses on our workforce development training in what we call port-related industries. So that is anything to do with maritime, the airport, green jobs, and construction. So supporting organizations in South King County to help do training programs. That fund is about $250,000 for 3 years, so that's one of our larger ones that organizations can be funded for. I currently manage the Environmental Grants Program, so that's what I'll be talking about today. This last round that we completed, we awarded 5 organizations. So for the Environmental Grants Program, we do public improvement projects that are funded in one of the 6 cities around the airport, Burien, SeaTac, Des Moines, Federal Way, Normandy Park, or Tukwila. Our cap annually is $20,000, and then we offer multi-year funding, so it's easier for organizations to apply just at one time and then be funded for up to $60,000 for those 3 years. We also have a 3-to-1 match requirement through this RCW. The 3-to-1 match, and I'll share some good news right after this, but the 3-to-1 match essentially means for every $20,000 that we provide an organization, they have to come up with $60,000 in match funding. That is a burden, right? It's Washington state law, but it's a burden for small organizations that we fund to be able to come up with the 3 match. So essentially you can come up with that match dollar amount in tree value for every tree that's planted. Could get you anywhere between $2,000 or $4,000. We also have volunteer hours. Right now I think it's about $34 an hour for every volunteer that you have at an event. We also offer community education at any events that an organization is doing around environmental public improvement. That also has a match value. And then we can have any cash donations, in-kind donations, and other grants that they apply for to help get them there. And so right now, Governor Inslee will sign into state law that it is now a 2-to-1 match. So the port and other cities around the state were able to advocate for making that, instead of $60,000, that they can come up with $40,000 in funding. And that will be applied for this following September. And then the organizations currently funded right now will also be able to lower their match in their budget. So we have 4 organizations that I wanted to touch on that are serving Des Moines. We've got EarthGen. They are doing a green stormwater infrastructure project with Highline Schools. This year, they just completed their project with 2 middle schools, and then this year they are looking for a middle school in Des Moines in the Highline School District to partner with to teach students about stormwater infrastructure. And they've been funded at 3 years, so they're coming into their 2nd year. We have African Young Dreamers Empowerment Program. They're a youth activist project that focuses on supporting Black and African immigrant youth in both Des Moines and Federal Way. They are doing restoration work at Sanju Park, and they'll continue that for another 2 years. And then we have Tilt Alliance. They have that South King County Community Garden support work. So they're working in 3 cities, Des Moines, Federal Way, and Burien, to help with partnering with King County Housing Authority to put community gardens in the public spaces around the housing buildings. And so they're working with a lot of elders, and then multicultural and immigrant communities. And then we just completed the Des Moines Memorial Drive Preservation Association grant. They are the ones that have put in the signal box wraps along the drive. If you guys have seen it, it's really awesome. And so we were one of their funding partners to make that happen. It's about 12 boxes along the drive between the three cities. And they were completed at 8,000 just recently. And Councilmember Harris, I got to see you there, so thank you. Okay, and so for next steps, we do have a community capacity building consultant, which essentially means a lot of the organizations that we support are small organizations. They need both staffing capacity and also being able to look at, what is the long-term sustainability for the projects that they're getting into. So our consultant is offering different training programs and kind of helping to reimagine what their grant proposal looks like so that it's also not a burden for the organizations themselves. We also have a summer community liaison outreach. So essentially, we really look to our community members within the 6 cities to help guide us on what are some interesting projects, how can we work with our city parks department to see what are the needs that they have, and then how do we build that out to make sure that there's an organization that wants to do the work, interested in the work, but they feel supported. So our community liaisons do receive a stipend to help us do the outreach work. And then we will be launching Cycle 4 in mid-September. We're having a few updates on the application, and we'll start doing our informational sessions at the end of July and August about that opportunity. So I'll leave it there. Any questions?
Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, and thank you. And just don't take this because, people who get grants, they're the last people who are going to give you the feedback, the old biting the hand that there's been an ongoing thing. And by the way, every year the projects get better and, and it's really great. But people complain about just uncertainty in that, there's that gray area between the application and actually getting the dough and so on. So anything you can do to, I understand the matches are onerous and the commissioners understand that, but anything you can do to just give them some kind of, certainty. It's just a funny thing with the grant. I'm glad to see that you're providing some kind of support. The biggest thing that I've noticed over the years is that it's hard to stand up a nonprofit to where you can even apply for something. There are lots of people with good ideas, and they just go, whoa, that's just too, So anything you can do to encourage people to get started and not feel like the whole deal is simply too daunting. And it seems like you're, doing things to make the process to help people along, but whatever you can do, that's just my annual kind of thing. And thank you so much. Yeah, the boxes, Daniel went and the art, fantastic. Yeah,
thank you. And we actually just went through an evaluation process that we'll be presenting to the Port Commission in September. And so through that evaluation process, we've heard a lot of those similar sentiments about timeline or, because this is technically a contract, that we're not giving that upfront funding dollars before a project starts. It's kind of, we're trying to figure out how to work through that part because.
But I heard the commissioners there, you had the discussion about equity in funding last Tuesday, and I clearly you guys are on it. So, good things. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. It's more about how we can help you. Obviously, the state law with this 3-to-1 matching grant, if there's ever, you need like a letter from us or something to our legislators or the Port Commission or anybody where maybe they change the legislation to make it a 1-to-1 or, we take 2-to-1, but a 1-to-1 to make it a little bit more easy for groups to, be able to fund their projects and not have such an impact. Let us know if we can help in that regard, okay?
Thank you so much. Yeah, because we were like, let's keep trying. And it was the last thing that you know, the legislature wanting to deal with COVID and everything. So at least we got it to 2-1, and I'm going to take you up on that, because I think next year we're going to fight for 1-1.
I think council,
And then maybe just 0.
I think this council in consensus would be glad to issue a letter in support of changing that legislation.
Great, great. And I'll be in contact with your Parks Department too about that.
Fantastic. Any others? All right. Sir, you have the floor.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all so much.
And our last item is a Des Moines Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulations Periodic Review and Update. We'll have Denise Lathrop and Laura Tachico give that.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Denise Lathrop, Community Development Director. Tonight I'm co-presenting with Laura Tachico, our Planning and Development Services Manager. But before I start, I wanted to introduce one of our new planners, Alicia Jacobs. I just told her I would have her stand up. She's just finishing up her master's degree from the University of Washington. So we're very excited to have her. We've been down 2 staff for almost 6 months now. And then we have our senior planner, Jason Weike. And this is the team that's going to be working with our consultant on the comp plan update through 2024. So with that, I will move on to the presentation. For those of you who attended the June 22nd Council Economic Development Committee, this is the same presentation we provided to the committee, but there were some council members not there, and this is a great opportunity to have a touch point with the community and fulfill some of our community outreach goals for this project. So the Growth Management Act requires the cities and county to periodically review and update their comprehensive plan and development regulations. We have a new deadline for this, which is December 31st of 2024. Key considerations that have inputs into this work are Vision 2050, which is the regional growth strategy that is put out by the Puget Sound Regional Council. Deputy Mayor Buxton was very involved in the development of Vision 2050 and input throughout that process. Des Moines is designated a high-capacity transit community, so part of Vision is to focus growth into urban centers and high-capacity transit areas primarily. King County, from the regional level, Puget Sound Regional, the growth targets get allocated to the 4-county region, and then King County works with its individual cities to establish growth targets. So for our 2044 planning horizon, we have a growth target of 2,380 jobs and 3,800 housing units. And we've already completed a urban growth capacity study that was done in around 2020 to evaluate our current zoning and to see if we would have capacity to meet these growth targets. So we're looking pretty good there. And then another component is to ensure consistency with new state laws and Vision 2050. So the graphic here on the right just provides sort of a hierarchy of how the growth management works. It trickles down to, as I mentioned, PSRC and Vision 2050, and then it goes down to the countywide planning policies and then the local level, and that's our comprehensive plan and our development regulations. So throughout this process, we are going to be engaging the community to reevaluate the vision, goals, policies, and implementation strategies that are currently expressed in our comprehensive plan that we have already adopted, and identify areas that may need updates or changes. In addition to this, once we get this community input, we will be bringing forth potential changes to the Council Economic Development Committee as well as the council as a whole. And the public will also have an opportunity to review those draft policy as well as development regulation changes before those are adopted. So one of the things in this current legislative season is that there were a number of new regulations that came into play that will affect our comprehensive plan update work. Some of this has usurped our local authority, and so we are starting to sort of unpack what impact this will have on our community. I am going to turn it over to Laura Chico, who will walk through some of the housing bills that were adopted, and then we'll have a slide that highlights just some of the other regulatory changes that have happened in the 21 to 23 legislative session that are what we will be reviewing our plan and development regulations for compliance with. So with that, I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thanks. Yeah, as Denise said, this year the state legislature passed a number of bills related to housing, and they all had a similar intent of increasing the amount of available types of housing that are allowed in cities. And two of the main ones that have gotten the most interest and certainly the most questions of staff are related to middle housing and accessory dwelling units. So House Bill 1110, the middle housing bill, within their single-family zones, this states that the cities must allow at least 6 of 9 types of defined middle housing. And middle housing are the types of housing that fall between detached single-family homes and mid and high-rise multifamily apartment complexes. So these are things like duplexes, townhomes, courtyard apartments, and cottage housing. For those sites that are eligible, the cities must allow subdivisions to divide those properties to allow for individual ownership of those homes. And depending on the size of your jurisdiction, the size of your city, and how close these lots are to transit, anywhere from 2 to 6 housing units must be allowed on each lot, with bonus density provisions for these developments that include affordable housing. A minimum of 75% of these single-family lots must be applicable to these, with up to 25% omitted due to things like environmentally critical areas or temporary delays for those areas that need extension because they don't have available infrastructure. However, cities can typically apply all of the standard regulations we do now in terms of yard setbacks, lot coverage, those sorts of things, but there are additional limitations on the off-street parking requirements. The big question is, when can we submit our permit? And so these bills have implementation deadlines defined, and zoning code changes must take place within 6 months of the comprehensive plan update. So as Denise stated, that is December 31st, 2024. So code changes related to this House bill need to be in place by June 30th, 2025. And I briefly mentioned that there's going to be some areas that don't have available infrastructure. So in terms of comprehensive plan updates, the capital facilities plan element of the comp plan would not need to be updated until the next periodic update in 2034. Next slide, please. Maybe I hit that. Okay. And so for accessory dwelling units, House Bill 1337 requires that cities allow 2 accessory dwelling units. Our code currently allows for a maximum of 1 in single-family zones. That additionally limits parking requirements depending on how far the lot is from transit and how big the lot size is. It limits the impact fees that can be applied to those reviews. It limits the requirements for street improvements associated with them, and removes barriers that previously would have precluded separate sale and ownership of accessory dwelling units. Currently, our maximum ADU or ALQ size is 800 square feet, and this would require that the maximum be raised to 1,000 square feet. There's some other provisions such that if you're converting an existing structure that currently is within a required yard setback, There are a lot of situations in which that would be allowed to be converted into an accessory living quarters. And similar to House Bill 1110, these changes are required to be made to zoning codes 6 months after the update. So again, that's June 30th, 2025.
Okay, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So this, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is just a list of some of the other House bills that were, or Senate bills that were passed during the 21 to 23 state legislature. And again, I mentioned earlier that these, a lot of these are contained within the Department of Commerce has a comp plan checklist that you go through your comp plan and do a review. And our consultant actually just completed the checklist in their review. We had a deliverable due to the Department of Commerce on June 30th, so that just wrapped up, and as you know too, we just wrapped up our housing action plan adoption. So now we are truly shifting focus more into the comprehensive plan update. Go ahead, next slide. And this is just a couple more of the bills that we will be reviewing our comprehensive plan for and development regs. Go ahead, next slide. So for broader perspective, our comprehensive plan provides a 20-year roadmap for how our community will grow and prosper in the future. It provides local policy planning and capital investments over that 20-year time frame. And so, as Laura was alluding to, one of the things we look at is based on our projected growth, do we have appropriate capital facilities, transportation infrastructure, utility infrastructure? And so those are the things that we were going to be pulling together. One of the other things I wanted to mention is that because of the new legislation that has passed, we should be receiving grant funding to support our work. And I know that Commerce is going to be coming up with guidelines, model ordinances, and that type of thing. But we are going to fold a lot of that work needs to be folded into what we're doing right now in our comprehensive plan update. So you'll be hearing more about those things as we learn more from the state. And so our comprehensive plan this is a 10-year cycle for the periodic review and update. Normally we have a docketing period between January 1st and June 30th of each calendar year where individuals could submit for a comprehensive plan amendment, or city staff or the city council may propose something that they would want to amend the comprehensive plan. An example of a staff-initiated one would be, for example, in 2020, our Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Master Plan was updated, and so we often will have a limited amendment that would come forward to update maybe parks inventories or new parks or facilities that are added to the land use map based on a new development that creates a park, that type of thing. And then again, I mentioned earlier, our planning horizon goes from 2024 to 2044. We look at the physical development of the city. I've already talked about transportation, housing, capital facilities, parks, economic development, and the environment. Level of service standards for roads, parks, and facilities. We will be looking at zoning and development regulations, and really thinking about what the community's vision is for getting there in the future. The regional growth strategy, again, Des Moines is designated as a high-capacity transit community, so growth is going to be focused in centers and high-capacity transit areas. There are a couple of new issues that we have to look at for part of our update requirements. One of that is dealing with climate change and strategies to reduce vehicle miles traveled. There's also a social equity, social justice lens that we're going to be looking at our policies and development regulations. And then, of course, housing, which is at the forefront of a lot of our work. I'm not going to read all of these. These are the current land use elements in our comprehensive plan. We do have 3 neighborhood-specific elements. The North Central neighborhood is the area where we have a moratorium in a portion of that neighborhood, where we're currently evaluating land use and potential changes in land use and zoning for that area. So stay tuned, because we will be bringing information to the council in the near term. And then we also have the Marina District neighborhood and Pacific Ridge. Public engagement is a really big piece of what will inform some of the updates to our comprehensive plan. In your packet was our draft public participation plan. That is not set in concrete necessarily. We will be always looking for opportunities to improve our communications, reach out to the community in that. So if council has any ideas or thoughts on that, we welcome any input that you have. We did create a project website, and so that is one that we will be trying to keep up to date and post information as it becomes available. Again, we will do mailings as necessary, public notices for any kind of public hearings. We plan to hold a few workshops and do some stakeholder interviews and surveys. And this obviously is going to model some of what we did for the Housing Action Plan, as well as the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Service Master Plan update, because those were both really successful outreach processes. And then this is our project website, which is imaginedesmoines2044.com. And we have some background information of the comp plan update, and as we have more information available, we'll continue to keep that up to date. We are planning to be at the Des Moines Farmers Market this summer, so we'll have a booth there, and we'll be doing something at the neighborhood night out at Midway Park too. So those are 2 upcoming events that we'll be engaging with the community. And then this just gives a timeline of some of our work. We've just completed the initial evaluation. As you may recall, we received $125,000 from the Department of Commerce to fund, doesn't 100% fund our work, but it contributes to the work that we're doing. And the first half of that grant just ended on June 30th, so we will be getting a new contract in the next week or so to finish out the work that we need to complete before December 2024. And we will post this schedule on the project website, and if there are any kind of updates, we will just keep you apprised. And that concludes my presentation, or our presentation.
Questions? I'll go with Councilmember Oxiger, Deputy Mayor Buxton, and Councilmember Harris.
Yes, thank you for the update. I was wondering, under the in-person public workshops, it mentions recordings of the workshops and any materials presented at them will be available for the public to view on the city's website. Will those be audio or video recordings?
You know, if we do a workshop in council chambers, that's really the only venue where we have the ability to accurately record. And so I'm envisioning those being when we're briefing council committees. I mean, for the most part, we are thinking that this will go through the Council Economic Development Committee, but there are sub-elements of the plan. So we have a transportation element that we will probably take to public safety and transportation and that. And so that's the kind of recording that we will have for those meetings. And we will always provide our PowerPoints and background information will be posted on the website as we move along through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions, so interrupt me and I can separate them if you want. So Imagine Des Moines 2044.com, that's a whole separate website. It's not within the City of Des Moines site, it's a separate one?
We did create it through the GoDaddy platform because it allowed us a little bit more leverage to brand the project update, similar to like what we did for the Housing Action Plan. It had its own sort of branding that we did, but it's accessed through the city website. So the links to this webpage and even the Housing Action Plan website is still up because we recently posted the adopted plan. So the very front page of the city's website, on the left-hand column, you can click on it and it'll get you right to this website. But you can also click on it by typing in that URL.
Like if you typed in, I mean, I didn't try it here, but.
You could do Imagine Des Moines 24.com and it'll pop up too.
Well, no, like if you typed in City of Des Moines Comprehensive Planners, or City of Des Moines, Washington Comprehensive Plan, then would it take you to the city website where you would get a link, or would it open up something like that, open this up, do you know?
Well, if you're doing it in just a web search, you'll probably get a choice. So you'll probably get the city's website. And another thing you might get is we have an adopted comprehensive plan that's currently in effect right now. And so that may be an option for you to select as well.
Okay. Go ahead.
Tim?
Yeah. I just did that search, and it was third. So it's not too far down the line.
Thank you.
Des Moines, Iowa comp plan was second.
Oh. You always got to.
They got to get that W, not even an I.
And I didn't do the WA part. So we did, it's pretty good.
That's awesome.
We get lots of calls for Des Moines, Iowa. You usually know when they give you a street name.
Then I had a few questions in regard to the community or the public outreach part. There was a mention about using listserv. Could you clarify how that would work if you use it's in the public outreach plan?
You know, I might have to get back with you on that because our consultant they're the ones that wrote this plan. So I'll get better clarification on that, and I can follow up with the city clerk and have that information forwarded to you all.
Okay. Kind of similar on down the line, the designated advisory committee, could our citizens advisory committee qualify for that? Or would you have to would we have to do an outreach to set up a committee specifically, an ad hoc for this?
No, what we typically have done in the past is like, for example, we've taken things to the Arts Commission for input. So there is a Citizens Advisory Committee, so we'll plan on briefing them.
Okay.
And then any other, like, potentially maybe we'll reach out to the Human Services Advisory Committee if it deals with any kind of human service needs, that type of thing.
Okay. Thanks. That's really all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, thank you so much. My first reaction was, oh, good, we've got all this time. And I'm like, yeah. So when do the regulations from the state start to become clear? Because my understanding is you're waiting now on quite a number of things, right? Or did I get
Well, the last two slides that I presented, those we already have enough information that's been in legislation for a couple of years, and so we have a pretty good feel of what needs to change in the comprehensive plan, the new housing legislation and that is information that's forthcoming from the state, and they will also be providing some grant funding to support our work to do some of the analysis in that. So
So does the 4th mean like September or just, you know?
I think I
yeah,
said
my-
coming forth, but,
No, my weak joke was that essentially we've got to vote on comp plan stuff and everything and, you know, next year's budget and so on. So even though it's December the 31st, realistically, we have to start taking a look at things, you know, like there's like a year window here.
yeah, and actually in the schedule, we will probably, I mean, to the extent we can, we may bring individual elements to the council, or we may present it to a committee and then brief the council following that discussion. But we will start bringing the draft plan to the city council in the summer, fall of 2024 with the goal of having it adopted before the end of the year.
But there'll be enough certainty for residents to weigh in on this, you know, as to like, you know, what specifics we're driving towards with regard to the sizes of the ADUs and setbacks and.
There'll be a little bit more time for the actual development regulations associated with some of the housing bills. Those are due 6 months after we adopt our comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan, we may develop some goals or policies or implementation strategies, and then we'll be tightening that information up between January and June 30th of 2025.
So you didn't mention, I mean, I'm assuming they passed, but there were a number of bills that talked about speeding up permitting and providing a little more.
Streamlining the permitting process?
And that kind of, you know, got my pulse quickening a bit.
Yeah, I gave an example at the Economic Development Committee, and it's really the closest thing I can come up with right now. But for example, when we were talking about the Housing Action Plan, one of the ways that they talked about streamlining development review process would be, for example, on accessory dwelling units, having pre-approved plans. And so Renton has a good example on their website where you say, oh, I'm going to pick this design 3C for my property. And so basically the review is a lot more streamlined because the design of the building, the modulation setbacks, all of those aspects are done, and it's a quick review for setbacks. And typically pre-approved plans are also engineered and that type of thing too. So it facilitates a more timely review.
I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, you only have so many human beings and in a short window, and you know, do we need to be thinking about providing you with more resources so that you can get all of this stuff done and provide ongoing certitude for people? You know, it's one thing to say, we will get you your permit decision within 60 days, but you know, you have to have the people.
Right. Well, we do rely a lot on our consultants, and so we will be taking a closer look at that. Right now, with our consultant support, that has helped us with a lot of the research and analysis, and then we can package it up and bring it to council for discussion and consideration. So far, it's worked pretty effectively.
Okay, two very, very quickly, I would just rhetorically, I hope you, on your list of library, that you will have some kind of, you know, input session at Woodmont. Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, we like to try and hit both libraries.
And if you can, the website looks fabulous. If you could just make it in like the 4 languages that were described in the response I got, that would be really good, just because it would be really good, yeah.
Yeah, and I think with regard to, and actually this is a good segue, because I think since we have a communications consultant evaluating our communications strategies, I know one of the things we've talked about in community development, you can often go to another city's community develop, or any city's website, and they'll have a whole list of languages, and they click on it and it automatically translates their website. And so that would be ideal, because for us to translate the whole website, we have to have the funding to do that. But we do have the ability, if, like for our notices and our public meetings and that, we will have it in those other languages.
You just mentioned that you stood it up through GoDaddy, and I just happen to know they've got that ability. You just put a little gizmo on it, and presto, it happens. It's like 1 minute. So thank you.
Great, we'll check that out. Thank you.
All right. I think that's it.
If there's no more questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. All right. Will the city clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, approval of minutes. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Second. Is there anyone that wishes to pull an item?
I'm kidding.
Okay. You had me there pretty good. All right. All those in favor of the consent agenda, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right. All right, we'll move on to new business. This is the sole time for new business on items that have previously not been discussed before council. This is not a time for questions about old business. Council members can submit questions or seek updates on previously discussed business to the city manager at any time. Do any council members have new business they would like to propose? Councilmember Ruxiger.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, we heard earlier that we do have some substantial problems with regard to policing illegal fireworks, and we are breaking ground with regards to using drones and dealing with the legal fireworks, but I would like to see whether or not we can possibly have either a task force, or I'm not quite sure what form it would take, but at least a discussion about how we can work with both our police and the fire department to see if there's something that we can do about eliminating, or at least reducing the problem of illegal discharge of fireworks.
I'd advise the chair of the Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee probably was the best place for that type of discussion to occur.
Agreed, and though I do believe that we're going to be having a discussion at some point in the near future, which you mentioned, about how to approach the event next year, whether we're going to do drones or fireworks. I'm wondering if we could wrap that together about a multifaceted approach about the event. I would go ahead and take the remand, that recommendation, public safety.
Okay, city manager or city attorney George, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. You know, as we were sitting here, our assistant city attorney was doing some research on different cities' codes, and he found some cities that actually prohibit property owners from allowing the discharge on their property of fireworks, which might address some of the situations where the police were talking about not being able to figure out who was actually lighting off the fireworks, but you show up and cite the property owner. So that's something that, you know, we made some notes over here while we were listening to that about something that, you know, we would bring forward. So I think that, you know, the idea here would be something that we would be willing to support too, that we think we could bring something forward to the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Do I have support on that with 3 ways? Okay, we'll remand that to the Public Safety Committee.
If I may, Mayor, just to be clear, but this is separate from the drones. This is something where you're taking up the enforcement piece.
That is exactly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. And then Councilmember Harris, you raised your hand for new business as well?
I did, and this is one of those small but hopefully mighty things. Our artist, George C. Scott, a local treasurer, has wanted for quite some time to fix the Marinascope, the sort of the rocket ship thing at the south end of the marina, and it needs a wire that does not work correctly. And I was told by the staff that that requires permission and allocation of staff time. So could I get a couple of colleagues to support that so that it can be repaired?
I need a little bit
You
more.
want me to, the deal is, it used to have a power, it has a little light at the bottom. See, this is one of those things that would just be easier. It has a little light at the bottom. It also used to have a little power line that went up the side so that there was originally intended the little, you can call it a smokestack or an oculus, but it was meant to have a little light show that generates from the top.
Can you just clarify, where is the statue located?
It's in the sculpture.
You know, you call it the marina scope,
Okay.
you know?
So I think this doesn't require council action. This would probably be better served if the artist could just contact our harbor master.
Well, the harbor master said that this should go before the council and just.
Well, I can talk to the harbor master.
Okay, so that's good, yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other new business? Seeing none, we'll go on to board and committee reports, and I'm going to start with Councilmember Harris.
Cool. So I just wanted to say, you know, thank the city attorney, because if that hadn't been brought up, and also Councilmember Oxiger, you can always do something. You know, people have been going on about the fireworks for years and years, and the response has been, well, you know, what are you going to do? There's always something you can do, and I can prove it by the efforts of different community members who organize their various block or their neighborhood, and it is surprising how if you get a few people here consistently saying, we want this, we don't want that, presto, it happens, and stuff that seems to be intransigent does happen. You can always change things, and that would be my message to the rest of the community. And along that line, other thing, PSA, the city is really doing quite a number of very nice events this year, and I would encourage just more marketing out to the rest of the community. They've done a lot of good things with events at the beach park, and I would encourage them to just do print flyers, put them out at the library, so forth. But, okay, so the organization I sort of moonlight with, ctacnoise.info, has, strangely enough, received not one but 2 grants, one from For Culture to develop a documentary film about the history of SeaTac Airport, and I want to thank them and just encourage others to get into the game as far as grant applications, like for the South King County Fund. Along those lines, the Port of Seattle has developed a new process to reevaluate tree cover throughout the area. In the past, they've been passive. They've done very nice studies as to the declining tree cover, and now they are developing a policy to try to go above and beyond and try to do more in terms of restoration and developing a best practice to share with the rest of the cities. And I would encourage you to go to their website and check out the public input that they will allow and encourage. The FAA is also doing a noise policy review about changing regulations to hopefully provide a bit more relief for this area. And both of those links I will submit to the city. And before one other thing. When we talk about taxes and, well, it's not coming from the general fund, it's coming from this other place, you know something? It's all your money. In other words, whether we collect it from a hotel or it comes out of your property tax or whatever, that's money that is going for your services, the things you want and need. And so I make no distinction as to where the source of these fundings are. The idea is it the highest and best use of the money that we have in order to serve you. And on the last thing, the thing about Water District 54 is I am reluctant. It's one of those but for the grace of God deals. Regardless of your point of view, we have grid issues throughout the city. And this is simply a wake-up call to us to consider the entire grid, which we've been reluctant to pay for. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember Pennington.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. A lot of events that happened here in, well, the last 3 weeks since we haven't done committee reports for, 3 weeks now, I think. And so anyway, a lot of stuff went on. And I'm really grateful for all of the city employees and that have really gone above and beyond and to help support these events and put them on so we could all enjoy them and trying things new. So thank you very much for that. As I mentioned earlier, I met with the Water District manager. It was a great conversation, and we'll be having some more of those conversations. And I would like to thank Denise because actually the committee I happened to chair at that day, not normally the chair, I was going to have to give this report. So thanks for giving my report, and I couldn't have held a candle to what you gave. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Steinmetz.
You know, there's far too much to cover in the past, and since we've been discussing the whole council policies things, we've just run out of time to address a lot of the things that we're doing. But I can tell you that I've just really been enjoying the city. I mean, we have a wonderful place. We're putting on very good events. The 4th of July celebration I thought was just spectacular. And everybody, you know, it was widely attended by everybody in the community, and every part of the community was there, and I think felt safe. I think they felt welcome, and I think they participated in their own way, and that was really wonderful. Last night I attended the Sound Cities Association Public Interest Committee meeting. On behalf, we addressed the regional board and appointments, committee appointments that the Sound Cities, the Public Interest Committee in particular, has input on who those nominations are, and nobody from our city was appointed to any of them, but we followed the recommendations of the staff. There was a very interesting discussion on the salary setting processes for most cities. And this is primarily for mayors and council members is what we're talking about. Some cities have salary commissions, some cities do not. Some cities pay their council members a salary and make benefits available to them. Some cities do not. They actually pay their council people zero. We get a stipend here in this city. But it was really interesting to hear the diversity of process that people use to, you know, establish what they're paying their electeds to do the job that they've elected them to do. There was a review or an update on the Affordable Housing Committee Charter Review. That is a King County entity that looks into setting policy on affordable housing. And again, they don't have any specific calling to build affordable housing, but they set the policies that make affordable housing more available within that. There was also a discussion about regional emergency management coordination. The city of Des Moines a long time ago committed itself to developing an emergency management plan and a department and getting people trained to do that, and we are way ahead of most places. Now they're just starting to talk about how do we go about essentially taking the model that we have here in Des Moines and expanding that out onto a regional basis. And so we ought to feel really good about that. And then one of the fun things was everybody got to present the city outlook and summer events that they were planning. And so we all spent, you know, a good 5 minutes talking about all the wonderful things our cities are doing, and Des Moines was by far the best. So, but that's what the committee consisted of, and you know, it was productive, and a lot of good sharing that goes on there, and that's where you get ideas from other cities. So, it was a good thing to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Steinmetz. Moving on to Councilmember Oxiger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to note that coming up next week, we have a couple of major events here, annual events that happen here, put on by Destination Des Moines and the Legacy Foundation. Legacy is going to be sponsoring first on July 22nd, that's a Saturday, a series of free children's events called Pirates Cove that will be at the beach park. And then later that day, we're going to have both the junior and the grand parades for Waterland. Again, that's on Saturday the 22nd. And then on July 23rd, Destination Des Moines is hosting its community barbecue, Smoke on the Water, and that will be at the beach park. And hope everybody would consider attending those and supporting our local organizations that are putting these on. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Oxiger. Moving on to Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank city staff and our officers for their service on the 4th and the weekend. Also Destination Des Moines for the wonderful car show on Sunday and concert, Uncle Ernie. And also to remind everybody that the Des Moines Arts Commission, the last 2 Wednesdays has had Concerts in the Park, a free community event, and they will be from 7 to 8:30 for the next few Wednesdays through August in the beach park. Beautiful setting. Last night was amazing. So come down and join us. That concludes my remarks.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I heartily agree with my colleagues about not only the amount of activities that we've been able to participate in, the way we've been able to advocate for our city and our citizens here, but just out and enjoying all of you. And it's been absolutely fabulous. I feel blessed. Special notes about the summer, several things have already been mentioned, and one of my favorites, I haven't mentioned for a while, is called Park Run. It's an international, a global running fitness organization that conducts a free 5K every Saturday at 9 a.m. all over the world. And we host one right in our beach park every Saturday all year long for free. And if you come down and join us at 9 a.m., I could almost guarantee you're going to get to meet somebody from some other country. It is really a cool experience. Councilmember Nutting, often I see him down there running. I'll be timing you, so. I hope to see you at Music in the Park or the Farmers Market, which has grown by a whole row this year, so it's bigger and better than ever before, and it's doing gangbusters. So I also now want to give a special thanks to our Public Works Department. Several people have worked very hard all over the city. I'm hoping you're enjoying these. For the last few years, we've had these flower pots. So got some photos here if you can see these. If you take a walk through town, down 7th, down through the marina, down Marine View Drive, there's pots and hanging flowers and next to benches, Soundview Park. They're just beautiful. I am so thankful that for all the work and the coordination that's keeping all these little spots full of color for us. So hats off and thank you so much for that. Well, in closing, I guess, as I work alongside my colleagues and with people out in the community, and as we work as an agency to just keep moving this city into dynamic destination community, there's lots of bumps along the way, and lately I've been remembering this quote or a form of it, and it goes like this: temperate people don't change the world, but they're a whole lot easier to live and work with. But what that means is if you really want to have a world changer or a community changer in your midst, there's going to be bumps. And so you can't have everything in one person. So I'm just challenging myself to remember to be deeply thankful for the unique gifts that each person brings to the table and brings to me and brings to my family and friends in this community. So thank all of you for being here and all of you watching. I appreciate all of you so much. Thank you.
The joy of going last is most of the things you were going to say were said by somebody else. Yeah, I've got 2 pages of events that I attended over the last month, very extensive, almost half exhausting, but in the same thing, being part of the community and being engaged with the community is its reward in itself. I will comment on Councilmember Harris's comment. A lot of the tax accounts that we have specific uses, and that's what your council appears for, is to find the best and highest use for those particular purposes. So each one has its own individual rules and regulations, and we go over those, and that's very thoughtful. I just want you to know that. A couple of the highlights over the last month or so is we did host Christine Reeves, a representative from the 30th District here, and that was informative and it was great. She predominantly spends her time in Federal Way, but she definitely showed interest because part of the 30th Legislative District, Redondo and Woodmont are 2 neighborhoods that are actually in that community. One of the exciting things, a lot of us attended the Wesley Sky Bridge. And the great thing about that, as you guys have seen, is what it's going to mean to that community. First of all, it puts the terrace and the gardens together, and it also ensures the safety of those residents, which is most important. We had a meeting with Adam Smith, and we had it down on the new bulkhead down at the marina, and a lot of staff attended and so forth, and it was a great opportunity to recognize the staff and the hard work. But most importantly, it was to thank Mr. Smith for the efforts he did in some of the pushing through some of the federal permitting. We didn't have the approach of what typically people do is make an ask. What we did is we just shared the vision of the city and where we were headed. We talked about the components of the $26 million bond and what we were trying to do. One of the things he was particularly interested in, and also as bummed as we were, is when we lost the passenger ferry. He seemed to be pretty committed to trying to find a way to have some kind of alternate energy like electrification or hydrogen power as a ferry service in the Sound, and saw the opportunity that maybe we get to play in that and be one of the leaders in that change. But all in all, it was to say thank you. It was you get 30 minutes with Congressman Smith, and you want to make the most of it. But we thought it was best to say thank you for all the work he's done for this community. Obviously, everybody talked about the parades and so forth. One thing on August 4th will be National Night Out. Third? Oh, my third. I know. First? Okay, it's August 1st. Thank you. August 1st is National Night Out, and I encourage you to get some neighbors, put a barbecue out, and let the police know that you're having that event. A lot of us will be stopping by, but what it is an opportunity to connect with your neighbors and community. We talk about the fireworks issue and some of those things. These are some of the things that can curb that, build goodwill, and share common interests and so forth. So I encourage you to do that. And then on August 16th, we will have the next meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee. And we're looking forward to that, to hearing their thoughts on, we gave them homework, and what they was the 3 things that they thought their neighborhood felt were most important as the city as overall. And then we asked them for 3 things that they felt were particularly important to just their neighborhood. And so our consultant has a great plan of capturing that data and consolidating it. And so we're really looking forward to that opportunity to hear them share what their vision and concerns are of the city. And with that, the next council meeting, what would that be?
I'm sorry. I just had a question with regard to the National Night Out. Last year, we posted on the website the various people around town had an opportunity?
Yes, that would be handled by the police, and Tanya Seabury and so forth would put something out.
Okay, so people know that if they are planning one and they do want to get on.
If they
still can.
if they contact, I believe it's Tanya Seabury, then they'll get on a list that will be communicated to the public.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, with that, the next council meeting will be August 3rd. That's where I got my mix up there. August 3rd at 6 p.m. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, and I have a count by Councilmember Steinmetz, seconded by Councilmember Nutting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Everybody enjoy your weekend.